Good evening and welcome to the Speak Easy podcast. And this evening, we have left the clubhouse room, Strategies for Success. Let's talk real talk with our host, Deborah Ellison. And tonight, we have had a candid and informational discussion on domestic violence and the many faces of domestic violence. And so we're going to come live here to the podcast. We hope others join, but we hope that you listen and that you learn and that you get something from our discussion. So good evening to Pastor Robert Cockfield and to our host, Deborah Ellison. Deborah, how are you this evening?
Gracious and present and accounted for. How are you tonight?
Okay, well, this has been a wonderful topic. I'm glad you selected this topic this week. It's one that definitely needs to continue because a lot of education needs to take place because a lot of people fully don't understand the face of domestic violence. It could be anybody on this panel, it could be anybody that you come in account with. It could be any social economic background. It could be from the White House all the way down to the poorhouse. It doesn't matter. And we have to stop this some way, somehow. So, Deborah, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you start the discussion off.
Thank you so much, Mother Constance. Pastor Carfield, how are you this evening? Thank you
Doing
so much for joining us.
yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, tonight we're going to talk about just a moment domestic violence. And domestic violence is also known as intimate violence because, like we talked about earlier, it occurs between people who have known each other or know each other, either on the first date, sometimes after knowing people for years, or in the worst scenario where you've been in a relationship with them for years. It can be emotional, sexual, physical, stalking, even just simply threats of abuse. It does not have to come from a partner. It can come from friends. It can come from church members. It can come from people that we hold in high esteem. What we don't realize a lot of times is when we are being abused. Being abused comes in so many different levels. And so we have to pay really, really, really close attention. We have to understand who we are. We have to understand whose we are. We have to understand it's lightning, you all.
Yes, it
It
is
is
over my
thundering and
way, too.
acting up.
Yeah, it's cutting up over here, too. So we'll do the
Yes,
best we
and we
can.
have
Oh,
to,
Yeah,
yes, and we have to understand that these abuses happen in all types of relationships, heterosexual, homosexual, same sex. Men are victims as well as women and children. And a lot of times we don't recognize the signs. At first, a person can just be irritable or frustrated or unable to cope with everyday stress. And we don't see the red flags because we are not educating ourselves.
exactly.
So, tonight, what we're going to dive into and talk about is domestic violence, how we protect ourselves from it. Because let me tell you, you have to be prepared when you are involved in a domestic violence relationship. You have to be prepared for all case scenarios because you not all the time are you going to get help from family. Not all the time are you going to get help from friends. Not all the time are you going to get help from coworkers, police, judges. Um, so you have to make alternate plans. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about too, is what you need to do to make alternate plans for yourself if you are a victim and you need to get away.
Thank you so much, Deborah. And you mentioned the different sources where people would think they could get help. We forgot to mention the church.
Yes.
Sometimes that's the last place that you can get help when you're in this situation.
Right. And that is simply because um, what we have found is that in a lot of instances, the people at in the church that you are going to, just like in many other instances, may be people who are committing domestic violence themselves, or they sympathize with the person committing the violence, or they believe in I don't know how you say it, but they believe that the Bible teaches that you should stay in a relationship and make things work. There are people who really, really believe that, and they will give you that information even based on the fact that you've been abused over long periods of time. So that is the reason why I said we have to be able to know who we are, whose we are, and understand that the God that we serve is a God of love, and that he did not make us in his own image for us to be mistreated. He made us in his own image for us to have a good life, the best life, the life that he planned for us.
Okay, Deborah, I think you froze up on us. So I guess the weather has gotten to her over there. She's frozen. And so, Pastor Cockfield, let's talk
Yes.
about this with the church
Okay.
being able to provide help for people when they need it
Yes.
in a situation.
Yes.
Well, over the years, I've seen a lot of domestic violence, and so let's when we talk help, I think the first thing when we talk about help is really how do we help ourselves, um, and what I mean by that is many times we already know this individual, him or her, are violent, uh, and we don't really talk about how do we help ourselves to either get out of the environment before it gets out of control, or to report it um, soon as it starts. So I'm gonna start with that report as soon as it starts. So what I found is that in all the cases I've dealt with is that you let them get away with it once, then they feel comfortable again, and we don't want to address it. And even with family members, some and you're right, some family members, because they could be part of your church community too. Um, that can exacerbate the situation, especially when you mix family and religion. Can you hear me?
We
I'm getting an
can't
echo.
hear.
Yes. Um, so we have to be careful uh, as we're reaching out for the help, not to mix religion and family. That's another thing.
Mm,
Um, the other ways to get help is you really need to talk to the authorities. I know a lot of people are afraid of that because it might put a record on somebody's, give somebody a record or tarnish their reputation, that kind of stuff. But here's the bottom line. What I have found out when you don't report it and into the authorities, then what ends up happening is these individuals will feel uh,
You're extremely loud.
okay.
Just
Yeah. So they're feeling emboldened. Um, Authorities help them to not be emboldened because they know who they are. They can I've seen them go as far as even um, patrolling area or just coming by making sure that him or her is okay, and just building that type of relationship. And one other way you can to get help is counseling. And I know that counselors have an obligation responsibility not to tell your stuff, but you can give them that authority to do that. And I've had individuals in my church do that. I just tell them, you know what, go see counseling.
I believe we've lost him. Yeah. I believe we lost him, Mother Costa.
I can see him. He's back, but you can't hear him.
Right.
Pastor Costa, okay, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. What I was saying, I must have my mic off. What I was saying is, again, you can go to, don't mix religion and church and your family. Get counseling. You can give your counselor authorization to report your situation, and the local authorities. You should talk to them and get them involved, engaged. Nobody should put their hands on you. First time, if you don't stop it, it just continues. It exacerbates itself, and especially if you got kids, you don't want your kids seeing that kind of stuff. And or seek a shelter to go to, or another friend's house or facility. I just to stay in an environment like that is just toxic. It's no good.
I agree. And it's sad because, we tend to think that the church is a safe haven or is a safe haven. And we often find out that it's not, because you're right. You've got a woman there who's being mistreated. Her life is in danger. Her children's lives are in danger. And she goes there, and that's the last place that she can get assistance. She's being told to stay there and work it out.
Exactly.
Stay there and work it out. Well, some things can't be worked out.
Mm-mm.
And the Bible tells us to remove ourselves from toxic relationships, because it's not a safe place for us to be in those toxic relationships. But I'm going to say for myself personally, going to the authorities was of no assistance. Calling the police was of no assistance. Getting a restraining order was of no assistance. Involving family members was of no assistance. The only reason I continued to make sure that I did contact authorities was so that if anything did happen, whether either if I had to defend myself or was a victim of something happening to me, that there would be a standing record of what had happened. Because at no time did any of these things help me. And I have had friends in the past or people that I have known that ended up murdered because none of these things, getting a restraining order, getting a pistol permit, none of these things, when someone locks in on you for the purpose of power and for the purpose of control and for the purpose of thinking that you as a person belongs to them and that they should be able to mistreat you, abuse you, talk to you any way they wish, it is hard for that person to let go and to release that. And so that is something that that person has to deal with. And unfortunately, that's the reason why we say victims of domestic violence, because we can only control ourselves. You cannot control the other person.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. We can only control ourselves. Mr. Burrell, I'm so glad you're able to join us. Welcome. I don't think she heard me.
I'm blessed to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So do you have anything you'd like to add to the discussion thus far?
This is still regarding domestic violence.
Yes.
When I was in a relationship with this guy, and we were supposed to have gotten married, but the Lord had already told me that that was not going to be, and I was trying to figure my way how to exit out of this relationship, and the Lord only showed me a glimpse of something that was going to happen, and He showed me where I had fell back on my bed, and I was trying to brace myself because my bed was up against a brick wall. I was trying to brace myself from falling, but I just really couldn't make light of it. So when I came home from work and one of my girlfriends asked me, could I let my fiance take her to the store? And I just said sure, but I had an uneasy feeling in my stomach, and I said sure. Well, this was at 5 o'clock, and he didn't come in till 2 o'clock. They were out together, and
Wow.
so when he came in, then that's when he proceeded to start hitting on me, you know, trying to hit, and I mean he was hitting on me, and so he pushed me back, and when he pushed me back, I was trying to. The Lord showed me that vision, what He had already showed me. I was trying to brace that wall, and He proceeded to just beat me and hit me in the face, and just kept hitting me and hitting me in the face. Just kept hitting me and hitting me, and I said, "Oh my God!" I said, "God, I can't get up." And I know God don't have anything to do with cutting somebody uh, uh, or anything like that. I don't know if that was God or if that was the enemy, but the voice said, you got a knife under your pillow, because I slept with a knife under my pillow all the time. You know? And
Bless
so
your heart.
I'm just telling the truth. I slept with a knife under my pillow all the time, and my hands was free. My left hand was free, but he held my right hand down, and he was beating me with his right hand. His left hand, which he's a left-handed person, held my right hand down. So I slid my hand under my pillow, and I just like you can hear the blade, because it was one of those real expensive knives, and you heard the wind say, it just went, and he jumped up, and blood came. I'm not gonna lie, I was aiming for the throat. God, y'all already know I was aiming for the throat, but it was
Yes.
his chin. He had to wear a full blown beard, and someone had called the police. And I gathered myself, and I had the knife in my hand, and I had my bag, and the police was coming to my apartment, and they looked at me. I said, if y'all don't get him, I'm gonna kill him. And you would have thought that the police would have stopped me and taken the knife from me and contained me, but they didn't. They let me get in my car and leave the premises, and I went to the country, to my hometown. When I looked at myself, I looked like a mongoloid. A
Yeah.
person with mongoloid with an exercised head, and my forehead and my eyes was just purple and blue, and my auntie, you know, I know y'all know something about a praying auntie or a praying grandma. you know, my auntie was
Yeah.
my auntie was blind. She was totally, totally blind. And I wasn't talking, and she knew something was wrong, and she told me to come there to her, and I came there, and I sit down beside her on the side of the couch, and I was in total shock, and she put her hands on me, and I flinched, and she said, what happened? What happened to you? What happened to you? And I couldn't speak. I just could not talk. Like one of these days today, what I went through with an individual, it was like I couldn't talk. I couldn't talk to say what I wanted to say, because tears was flowing, and I was like, God, you know my heart. You know my heart. And at that particular time, it was the same thing that happened. So my nephew came in the house, and he looked at me. He said, "Hey, Bernie, what is wrong with you?" And how he escalated his voice, it just made my head throb even worse.
Right.
And my aunt said, she said, Tony, she said, don't do that. She said, I'm gonna ask you to go to the house. Leave your auntie alone, because I'm afraid that the shape that she in, you gonna get it. And she sent him home. But she got up and she prayed, she got her oil, and she came to me, and she bathed my head, y'all. She bathed my head. She bathed the top of my head, the back of my head, my whole face. She bathed it with that anointing oil. And I want to tell you, you can't tell me that God can't do miracles. My face went down within 3 days. When my head went back to its normal size, I got ready to go back to Oklahoma City. And she said, she couldn't say Bernie. She said, Bernie. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, "Are you going back to the city?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Well, come here. I want to pray for you." I said, "Annie, I ain't got time. I gotta go. I gotta go to work." But I wasn't going to work. I was going to go do some collateral damage. I'm
Mhm.
just being honest. I'm just being honest and transparent as I can be. She said, "No." She said, "God told me to pray for you." I said, "Ain't recent. I ain't got time." And when she said, "Bunny," and when she hopped, when she elevated her voice, I went to her. She said, "Sit down here." And she started praying for me. She said, "God, give her a heart to forgive and give her a heart to continue to love like you gave her. Her heart is big and she loves." She said, "Continue to let Bonnie love, Lord." And she said, "Matter of fact, don't let her leave this house until that spell is over." I said, "Spell? What spell?" She laid hands. Do you know God arrested me, y'all? He arrested me because God knew what I was going to do. Do you know what time God had my auntie to lay hands on me? I heard everything in the house. I just couldn't talk. I couldn't speak and I couldn't move. I heard who came through the door. I heard my sister come in cooking. I heard my aunties them come through. Now, what's wrong with Bernie? She said, "Nothing, God got her." But at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, she laid hands on me and God lifted me to speak. She said, "Now, do you think you can go back to Oklahoma City and act like the child I raised?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "You think you can?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Go out there and bring me that knife that's in your car." And I said, "Reese, how you know I got a knife?" She said, "Y'all don't believe, although I'm blind, y'all don't believe God talks to me. He shows me things." And I knew that, but I mean, for something that happened to me and that God could just tell her what happened, it just threw me for a loop de loop because I was planning. I said, "I got a king size bedspread, a king size blanket, and I can go there and kill him and wrap him up, put him in my car and take him to the country and throw him in the river."
You had
But
had enough.
but God, but God, but God,
But
but
God.
God, but God, but God. Oh, but God saved me, hallelujah, from making the worstest mistake in my life. I wasn't thinking about my baby. I wasn't thinking about my siblings. I didn't think about my auntie. All I wanted to do was get him because I didn't deserve that. I never went to healing or went for therapy about it. I knew God healed me, and at this particular time, I may should because there are several things that I feel like is abusive when people talk to you in a harsh manner, like you are nobody, and they are a lead authority in church,
That's what we just talked about.
and not giving you your chance to speak a voice, but want to pull you down for whatever reason. I don't know if it's intimidation, whatever the reason is, it's not right. And I don't say that I stumbled over this today. I believe God led me to this today because my heart is still bleeding, and I won't help. I won't help. So I don't want my daughter and my grandbaby going through anything like this. I can't imagine seeing them being abused like this. I don't want them to be abused like this.
Can I recommend something to you?
Yes, ma'am.
That you tell them your story. Tell them your story. Let them know. Because it may be something about your personality that your children don't understand. And just having a one on one conversation with them about what happened to you will not only help your relationship with them and knowing who their mother is, but it will also ensure that they see the signals and the signs for themselves so they don't become victims of the
Victims.
same thing that mama was.
My daughter only know bits and pieces. My granddaughter, Layla, she's 11. I started working on her no time she was in this world. I started protecting her and started speaking to her and letting her know, her mother and her father are getting a divorce, but her father wants to pick with her, and she has a sister, so he makes the difference between the two.
And that
And
is
that is
domestic
domestic
violence.
violence. Yes, and I told her, I said, you don't have to call your father. Let your father call your mother to check on you. And I told her, I said, Layla, you matters. And I said, the more you call him, the more your feelings is going to be hurt. And it's like you craving for hurt. And that's not God. I said, you have an ultimate father who is God that loves you unconditionally. He receives and he has accepted you for who you are. I said, stop it. I said, stop it. I don't want to see you hurt. I said, I don't want you to make your way hard like Nana had made her way hard in certain areas. And I said, I tell you this because I love you. You matters. You are loved. You matter. Just because he has an immature heart and mind doesn't mean he don't love you, but he just doing his own thing right now. And I said, please stop it. And so she stopped. But I haven't told her my story. And I was trying to wait till she at least get 12 or 13.
No, ma'am.
No,
Let me
ma'am. Let me
explain you
explain
something
it.
to
Okay,
you.
come on, come on, come on,
That
mama.
might
That
be
might
too
be
late
too late
because what
because
will
what will
start to
start to
happen is
happen
with
is with
preteens,
preteens,
especially when our
especially when our
parents go
parents
through
go through
divorce or
divorce or
there's
there's
instances
instances
of
of
abuse,
abuse,
just even
just
if it's
even if
just
it's just
threats, it may
threats, it
not
may
be
not be
physical.
physical.
She will
She will
start as
start
she
as
get
she get
a little
a
bit
little
further
bit
along
further
in her
along in her
teens,
teens,
looking for
looking for
love,
love,
looking
looking
for
for
some
some
acceptance
acceptance
in all
in
the
all the
wrong
wrong
places.
places.
It'll be
It'll
too
be
late
too
to
late
pull
to
her
pull
back.
her back. Well, my daughter has kept, has talked. I try not to overthrow her, but she lets me know how far she has gone with Layla.
Right.
And so when she lets me know, then I piggyback and it lets me know how I can talk to her. Or sometimes when Layla come in from school, she said, Nana, because I went to school for Christian counseling, she said, I need you to counsel me. I said, what's going on? And she said, I was talking to my girlfriends and I was telling them I had a barrier in my life. And Riley come through and he said, shut up, Layla, you don't know what you're talking about. She said, Nana, why would he say that? I said, because he don't know your language. He don't recognize the words that you are using. So instead of him listening to you, he tells you to shut up because he's not understanding. I said, what did you do? She said, I quit talking. I said, don't you ever do that again. You continue to talk to your
Exactly.
friends. And she said, huh? I said, continue to talk to your friends. You was not talking to him. I said, don't let nobody muzzle your mouth. You hear me?
Or
She said,
dim your
dim your
light.
light. She said, yes, ma'am. So I've been starting with her at a early age. I need to catch up to where her mother is at. I try to let Marissa come forward and it let me know how to talk to her because I keep my granddaughter every day. So, but I've never told Layla my story,
Yeah,
and
Yes,
I've never told my daughter my full story. But my daughter knows me well enough to know that I know you haven't told me all the story.
yes, ma'am.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
need to
You need
share
to
that
share
with
that
your
with your
daughter.
daughter.
Mr.
Mr.
Crossfield, what
Crossfield, what
advice do you
advice do
have
you
for
have for
her?
her?
well,
Well,
I come out of
I
a
come out of
home
a home
that
that
had
had
a lot of
a
domestic
lot of
violence.
domestic violence.
So
So
my children
my
right out the
children right
gate,
out the gate,
I informed
I
them of
informed
my
them of my
background,
background,
told them the whole
told them the
story,
whole story,
and
and
I did that
I did
because
that because
I want history
I
to
want
repeat.
history repeated.
I think
I think
that
that
as a
as a
parent,
parent,
if we're not
if we're not
careful,
careful,
we'll try
we'll
to
try to
protect our
protect
own
our
self
own self
by not
by
telling the
not telling
truth,
the truth,
or we feel
or we feel
ashamed.
ashamed.
But
But
what does that
what
do
does that
for the
do
next
for the next
generation?
generation?
And what I
And
find
what I
out,
find out,
my children
my
have
children have
great
great
respect for me.
respect for me.
So
So
as a
as
parent,
a parent,
I don't think
I
it's an
don't think it's an
age
age
when you should
when
tell
you
the
should
truth.
tell the truth.
You should just
You
tell
should
them
just tell them
as soon as they
as soon as they
understand it.
understand it.
And
And
second reason
second
is
reason
that
is that
this world is
this world is
cruel.
cruel.
There's a lot of
There's a
people
lot
out
of people
there
out there
that
that
get in relationships with young people, and they're abusive themselves because they've been abused. So I think if you enrich your children, tell them about that, and how to guard themselves, take care of themselves, it opens the door for them to trust you enough if they're in that situation. And then you can help them.
All right. I appreciate you.
And as we often say, hurt people.
Hurt people. Yes, ma'am.
And so when you have a child at school that's the bully, that bully at school, he's a bully because somebody at home is bullying him.
Right. Now, my daughter, she didn't let her go to the public school system, Oklahoma City public school system, which is for sixth graders, it's a larger school. So, my daughter was on it. She said, no, Mama, I'm going to put Layla in Independence, where they sharpen her skills and get her ready for high school and teach. And they have all of these subjects about bullying and things like that they are training girls. They have uniforms to wear. They can't wear their regular clothes because they're trying to break that, stipulation about who's looking better than who's dressed better than the other. They have uniforms and jackets and things like that. So she said she will be going to the school not far from your house. I said, okay. So my daughter is on it. She's a policeman, and she tries to keep Layla knowledgeable as well as I do too. But I didn't know how much I should reveal to Layla without, telling her mother first.
Well, have a talk with her mother. Can I say something about that last subject you were saying?
What was that part?
I understand why we put kids in certain schools and environments. But what happens to us when we get to be adults and we encounter these people at work, at church, as friends, in our environments that we have been taken away from around? We have not learned how to deal with them in a one-on-one situation. You understand what I'm saying, Mother Constance?
Yes, I do. My kids step further. Who's to say that kind of behavior is not taking place at the school? People are people. I don't care where you go.
Right.
How much you're saying in tuition or whatever. The same behaviors are everywhere. And as I tell my son, he was little, I said, listen. I said, Satan never goes on vacation. And he lives in the gated community just like he lives in the.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just saying.
Yes, we had to move my niece to a couple of private schools because of the abusive treatment. She had gotten so bad she was pulling her hair out, and her hair was breaking from the stress. So like I said, it does not matter. It just matters that they're in a good environment, that is conducive to them being around a diverse variety of people so that they can learn how to interact with all types of people.
Well, this independent school has all walks of life, all different types of people. She did have Layla in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is a karate class.
Yes, ma'am.
And Layla did real good. She did really, really good. But after the parents separated and my daughter's funds became limited, she couldn't afford to keep her in that class. But after her divorce is settled, she said, Mama, I'm going to put Layla right back in that class because it disciplines her.
Yes, ma'am.
And her karate teacher disciplined all the children. He was really good with her, and she made third in her competition. But Layla know I don't play with her. She knows I mean what I say, so she stands attention with me. And not
Yes.
to rule or have authorship over her, but I want her to take me serious. I said because you're gonna need somebody who's gonna you're gonna need somebody to believe in what you're saying.
Right.
And I said your nana is gonna believe what you're saying because you didn't ask to be here.
Yes,
And I
ma'am.
said, and go
When
ahead.
I went through my domestic violence situation, my children were about the age of your granddaughter. So they went through this with me. And so we went through a stage of teaching them about bullying and how to stand up to bullies in school. And what happened as they grew older, they were the ones who protected other children in school from being bullied.
Wow.
Yes. I had a young man when my son was, I think, in like the 8th grade. Um, he was being bullied in school, and my son was on the football team at the time, and he embraced him, and he never said anything to anybody. He just took him in as a friend, walked around with him. But because see, my son was on that football team, and they knew he didn't play, this young man was free to live his life in school. They knew not to bother him. And so we have to teach our children to stand on what's right.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think about that, Mother Combs?
I agree. We need to teach them. There's just certain behaviors that we just can't do. There's certain things we can't tolerate. It's not nice. It's not good to engage in those behaviors. And so, again, let's get back to sabotaging behaviors we talked about this week. They start at childhood because of things that someone said to them out of the way, or mistreated them, or whatever. That's the start. So we have to start educating younger and younger.
Yes, ma'am, because like I said earlier, domestic violence run in all genres, like Mother Constance said. It doesn't matter your socioeconomic. It does not matter your gender. It does not matter your age. That it's just something that happens all across the map.
That's right.
Unfortunately, it's part of our culture.
And it's not just a matter of someone putting their hands on you and hitting you.
Right.
They can talk to you in the other way and belittle you.
And cut you like a knife with their tongue.
It's several different forms of it. That's why I said earlier, it's the many faces of domestic violence. And it doesn't have to be an intimate partner. It does not have to be someone who lives in the same quarters as you live in. It could be someone who encountered in the workplace or at school, on the school bus, playground. There you go.
Yeah, I just think that that honesty coming from a grandparent or parent is a beautiful thing. And I'm now close to 60, and I'm in counseling, and a lot of that stuff you carry with you if you don't be honest with yourself. Now I've told my kids pretty much everything, but one of the things I didn't do, I didn't properly process all of that stuff. So when my parents passed away, a lot of that stuff resurfaced. And that's a whole nother stuff. It's like you get out of the situation, but you imprison yourself.
Right.
And you'll have doubts about who you are as an individual, your purpose and intent in God, or even if you're capable of raising children. That was one of my fears. I came out of this home, so I said, how good of a dad I'm gonna be? and I second guess myself. And so there's some triggers out there that you have to identify. It could be people, places, and things, and you have to deal with that. And really identify how do you modify your behavior so you don't destroy yourself.
Wow.
Sabotaging behaviors, Mother Cup.
There you go. So
Sabotaging
much discussion. We're going to have some other discussions around this because it's something that we need to talk about. It's not talked about enough. And that's the only way we're going to stop it.
Okay, when I asked the person to let me speak, they kept talking. They kept overthrowing the conversation and kept talking and kept talking. So when she wanted me to speak, the Holy Spirit said, "Just be quiet."
Yes,
And I was quiet because I felt like no matter if I did try to talk, she was going to overthrow everything that I say. And she said, "When I'm getting ready to go, is it something that you want to say?" I said, "No, it's nothing."
Now, can I ask this question?
Yes.
And what relationship was that person to you?
Co-worker.
Yes. So let me give you some advice on that.
No, it wasn't a coworker.
It wasn't.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But I'm trying to be careful because
I got you. I got you. So,
but it was a spiritual leader.
Okay then. And let me explain this to you. Spiritual leaders are just as abusive too, because it's about power. And parishioners will make certain leaders feel that they're entitled and enthroned to do and say whatever they want. And they think they're smarter than everybody else.
Yes.
In situations like that, never back down. So I tell prisoners that all the time. I don't care if it's me. I don't care what I say to you. Tell me the truth about how you feel too. Just when you think you're not getting across or getting that message to them, believe me, you are. They just don't want you to know that. So next time that happens, don't close your mouth. Let them know.
Well, I don't think that she kind of took away some things that she was having me to do because some things didn't get to her the way she thought it could. But you can't run what goes on here at my house. And you live so many thousands of miles away from me because you wanted me to do this by this certain time. And so therefore she took away some things that she had me to do.
But that's a form of abuse. That's church abuse. So that's spiritual abuse. That's religious abuse. And but here's what I'm gonna put some weight on you.
Oh, come on.
So first of all, if I know who I am in God and my purpose and intent and what I'm supposed to be doing, that person didn't take anything away from you. Not at all. That's one. And the second thing is, think about this. It's not. The order is God, your family, then the church. So what I tell parishioners, do not let that order get reset. So I'm glad when they take stuff from me. I just had that happen a couple weeks ago. And guess what I did? I said, sure. You can have it back. Have it back, brother. I'm good with it. Huh? And then they didn't want to talk to me. So, I don't have time for you. And I don't have time for you. I'm good. God ain't changed. God talking to me. That's all that matters. I don't care. Look, you ain't the only leader on the planet. So, and it takes that it takes the air out the balloon. Like, are you serious? And so prisoners, I don't know why. Look, we are not dumb sheep.
Right.
So what church leaders will do is have you check your brain out at the spiritual door. And you have to let them know, no, it's God, my family. Because him or her is the high priest of their family first.
Right.
Then the church. So just as African Americans, black folk, we so interested in church, and church can become our God instead of God being God, and the church just be an institution that we learn from one another to learn more about God, and the real church is outside the four walls. It ain't got nothing to do with that box or that leader.
All right,
Got it. I appreciate you, sir.
Oh, wow. So this has been a powerful and informative discussion tonight. Deborah,
I think you dropped the mic. What you
Yeah,
think?
he did. Yes, he did.
you hit the nail on the head tonight with this topic.
We will continue this conversation next week.
Yes.
I'll be ready. I'll be on.
Okay. Well, I want to thank each of you for joining tonight for Let's Talk Real Quick and in our discussion on domestic violence. And until next week, may God bless you today, tomorrow, forever, and always. And good night.
Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Have a blessed one.
You too.